So we're almost done setting up Redux Saga. We did the middleware setup in the index.js file. Now we got an error if you go to your browser and you see your app now has an error saying that Saga argument must be a generator function because we haven't defined the sagas. So I'm going to explain a little bit about generator functions as we go through in the implementation of the Saga, but I highly recommend that you look it up by yourself. It's the function star construct of JavaScript. I recommend the NDN documentation from developer.mozilla.org. You can look it up to get a little bit more familiar with the generator function. Okay, so with that said, let's keep going. We're going to create the saga in this lesson. The saga to fetch the fruits. So let's get started. So we have the file sagas.js. So we're going to create a generator function. It's a function that has the star right after the keyword function. Let's call this guy a root saga. Okay, and then it's just a function, so it has arguments and a body. At the end, let's export the file so to make it available to our index.js file. So that's great. Let's save this. See if we still have any errors. So we don't have any more errors. We define a generator function. That's great. Now we're gonna use something called a yield keyword right here, and we're gonna be listening for the action to request the fruits. So we're gonna use what's called a Redux Saga effect called take latest. So this guy is going to take as an argument, okay, an action type. We're gonna do fetch fruits requested. So this guy is going to be listening, right? So if any action is emitted, it's going to go here. Okay, is the action that was emitted fetch fruits requested? If so, it's going to take that action and do something. And that do something is the second parameter. It's another generator function. Let's make it an external function. Let's call it fetch fruits. And I'm going to define it right here. Generator function star fetch fruits. This function will take as parameter the action. Okay, this action that was taken will be given to this generator function. Now we did not import take latest, so let's do it. Take latest, you can import it from Redux Saga /fff. Let me make sure I have the import right. Let me go to the browser and see the documentation. If you look at the Redux Saga, redux-saga.js.org, they have a good documentation. I just want to look at the get started to see if I imported that thing right. I just want to make sure the package is okay. Redux Saga /fx, so that's okay. Great. Going back to the text editor. So we're good. Let's see if there's no problem in the browser. In our app, everything's great, no problems. So let's keep going. So as we said before, this is a generator function, and when you call the generator function, you're going to get what's called a generator object. That generator object can be used to call the body of the function, and you can call it, it's going to go all the way to the next yield statement, and then you can pause the execution of the function, and you can then resume it later. To illustrate that, let's go back quickly here to the browser. I want to let you know a little bit about the generator function. I'm just going to clear this, and I'm going to define a generator function here. Let's call it get number. It's just a generator function, a function with a star with the name get number. What I'm going to do is going to type the following. You don't have to understand it right away, but I'm just going to say yield 1. Oops, I didn't want to do that. I want to do yield 2, yield 3. Now, when I call the generator function, what we get is a generator object, okay? So we're not really gonna execute anything in the actual function body yet. So you have to add this guy to, you have to assign it to a variable, give it any name you want. I call it generator. Now we got the generator. Now to be able to execute the body of this function, I have to do the following. I have to say generator dot next. When I call this next function, what's going to happen is the following. It's going to go through the function. It starts here until it sees the first yield keyword. It's going to take this value and return inside an object under the value property. So that one goes under the value property that's returned from the generator next call. And it also tells you whether it's finished going through the whole function or not. So it said done is false. So basically it goes and finds the yield statement. Okay, so I'm going to yield this value to you and I'm going to stop right there. So the function is kind of paused. So you can only go next if you execute next again. You see, if I call next again, it's going to go, okay, I'm going to continue. Go to the next yield. Oh, take the 2, place it under the value property of the object that's returned, and check if it's at the end of the function. It's not yet at the end, so it's going to say done false. If you keep doing that, it's going to go to 3. Okay, I found the next yield statement. I yield the value 3, and not yet done, because even though it's the last statement, it hasn't run through everything just yet, so you have to call it one more time. And finally you get undefined for the value, and with done, true, because it finished going through the whole function body. So that's the generator function. You can pause and resume at any time using the dot next, okay? So if you keep doing dot next, there's nothing else it's going to give you, right? Because it's done. So let's review what we did here. We learned about generator function. Just a detail, when you call generator function, you don't necessarily call these statements in the body. You actually get a generator object that you can use to execute every yield statement in sequence as you keep calling next. Dot next, dot next, and you get an object with a value property that contains the value yielded by that yield statement. In this case, it's just a plain number. It could be anything, right? So it's going to tell you whether it's done with the done property being true when it runs through the whole function body and there's nothing else, no more yield statements, nothing else to do. Okay, so I think it's time for us to take a break, and I'll see you in the next lesson.